Okay, so I've been studying these things because I figured I could find the seven-sided form here. So I figured the seven-sided form would be between these two because there are 6 here faces and there are 8 faces here. So I figured the 7 would be here. Well, that's how I started. Well, that's one part of how I started. Now this guy here, the last one, the dodecahedron, okay, this is known as the cosmos. I think it's because it's 12, huh? And we're based on 5, which all the faces are 5, and it's a zodiac. So the Greeks said this was the cosmos. Okay, today we call it plasma, we call it orgone, we call it prana, we call it the akasha. We have all kinds of names for this. Okay, but it's basically the same. It is the etheric. Okay, now Rudolf Steiner came along and said, "No, wait a minute." He says, "I think there are ethers for every one of these. Not just one ether." He thinks there's 4 more. There are 4 ethers. He's the first one to ever do that, or to think that, or bring that out. It's always been 1. Okay, so in the past, everybody a couple thousand years ago would carve these out of stone. Well, that's a tetrahedron. This is an octahedron. This is the icosahedron. This is the cube. And that's the dodecahedron. They're all out of stone. And they've dug up hundreds of these because there were schools that taught this. They taught what these are. They call them Platonic solids. Well, lucky for me, in the 20th century, I came along and they didn't look solid to me. They looked hollow. I saw into them. There was stuff inside these things. And that's what really encouraged me to start studying these. And I did. I started studying. And what I found out was that these are earth-based forms. Of course, there are organs. If we have a problem with one of our organs, you can go to one of these forms and study them. And that will help you, okay, because everyone here comes with a deficiency in an organ. That's our problem. But it's also our gift. So if we have a lung problem, okay, and of course this is the one we would study because this is based on the lungs. And the lung, okay, is a temperament. So all of these are temperaments. This is the choleric. So each one of these, I don't give you the answers to every one of them because I'm trying to encourage you to do your own study. Because if you're interested in transforming yourself, which you should be, you need to go to this. Because we have to transform our temperament. That's what we're here to do, is to transform that so that we can eventually start to work. So that we're not just coming off our organs in everything we do. And we have to transform ourselves. You don't have to transform the world. You don't have to transform New York. You just transform yourself and that'll change the world. That'll change New York. And you do that in a lawful way because these are lawful. Now this cube, okay, this cube is fantastic. I'll use the cube here as an example. It is unbelievable how much it relates to the earth. You're going to think, well, how can this be the earth? Okay. One of the ways is that I'll use this plastic one. The face of a cube is 1 by 1. It's 1 square mile. If I go across the diagonal of the cube, it's exactly 2 square miles. Exactly. No measurements. 2 square miles. Now root 2 is just as bad as root 3 and its numbers. You cannot find the n. It's esoteric number. Now I showed you before that root 3 was the diagonal across. I can't fit this in here, but I can show you the diagonal, that that's root 3. This is 3 square miles. And of course, this is 4. This is 4 square miles. All right. If I put another one here, this distance is 4. This is the square root of 4, this distance. Yeah? The distance between this corner and this corner is the square root of 5. These are esoteric things that we need to know about the cube, because if you have a lung problem, this will help you. And you're going to say, wow, well, there's a lot more that you need to know about the cube. The cube has an axis based on 1. It has an axis based on 2. See, that's across the corners, or across the edges. And there are 12. There are 12 edges. Imagine if there are 12. And then, if you go root 3, it's across all the corners. But they're all in the center. They all cross in the center. Okay, whenever you do a star chart reading and you look for the 90 degrees, that's this, 90 degrees, that is your problem here on Earth. So wherever you see the 90 degrees, uh-oh, there's a flag that goes up. That's where you have to work. That's where you're probably trying to avoid. Okay, now, I'm trying to tell you that in each one of these there's an organ and there's something that you can do and study. Because this is Saturn, this is old sun, this is old moon, and this is Earth. Rudolf Steiner used these things throughout his work. He used them way more than you can imagine how much he used these. Even in his capitals. Okay, so this is the first thing I did, was when I studied these things, I wanted to know how you get from here to here to here to here to here. Now, this is the Earth. Okay, the Earth forms. So everything on Earth contracts. Everything here is contracting. Everything above here is expanding. Rudolf Steiner said that across the threshold is a reversal. And that's what it is. It's a reversal. It's air. All right, so this is what I found out. If I take a tetrahedron, which is fire, that's the same size, how do I get to this one? Well, I found out that basically what they did was they just cut the corners off. That's known as an Archimedean form. This is Kepler worked on this thing. All he did was cut the corners off. An Archimedean form. It's a transition, okay? It's coming from this guy here. Now, what they did next was they just kept cutting the corners off some more. And when they come up, an octahedron. Octahedron is inside a tetrahedron. This is warmth, this is light, and this is a transitional form. This is a transitional form. It's an in-between form. All right. All right, so we have to cut some corners off here because that's what they did. Because remember on this side it's contraction. Okay, so if you take the corners off this guy, there's the next form, halfway through. And you continue to go, and you get the cube. That's fantastic. You got all these triangles and stuff here, but there's a square. So this is what's different. This is what's reversing, but we don't have water. And water, which is an icosahedron, doesn't come in through cutting off. These are called truncations. It comes through cutting corners off and coming up with this one. If you cut all these corners off, which are 12, you get 12 faces. And if you cut all of these corners off, which are 20, you get 20 faces. This is known as water, which is changing. That's right in the middle here. But it doesn't come in the same way. But it can, in its form, it can conform to this gradual contraction. Okay. I said this was reversing, right? What that means is that if I take and I mark all these triangles like this, this is how you work. This is how you work, because you see, this is going to be what's different. I mean, what reversing, and this is air. And this is the kidney, so you've got a kidney problem, this is what you do. You work with the transition of what this does. And what this, like Rudolf Steiner said, this is a reversal. He said if you have a kidney problem, walk backwards at night before you go to sleep. And well, what is that? It's just this. If you take this and you take all these points, okay, and find out what's inside. That's what I'm always looking for, what's inside here. I take this all apart. There is the cube. This is the reverse. It's the same size. It's the same size cube. This is known as air. This is reverses. Okay, so here it is here. And you saw how this was contracting. Contraction, contraction, contraction. Okay. So, I started to study the ethers. I studied the Platonic forms. Okay, here. I'll put these up here. I start to study these guys. Well, let's put him up here. I had studied these. Now, I knew that he said that there was an ether and an element. This is an element. So, he started out by saying that the ether and the element were both related, but I'll have to do it like this. Okay, I'm going to take the first one. The first one is fire. Okay, this is the element. The ether is warmth. Okay. Now, here's what I decided. How can that be? So what I did was I took fire, and how's the difference between fire and warmth? There's a difference. So I took a candle, and I took a flashlight. Now, I don't know if I can be able to do this, but I hope. But I put a flashlight, and yeah, it's there. And what I found out was that a fire has a shadow. And you can do this at home. And you can see that little shadow. You can see the little shadow of the string that's burning, and then above that you can see the shadow of the fire.